Today, we have gathered here some of the brightest minds in the field of medicine and endocrinology to share the research.
And I'm glad that I could make myself available for this and be a part of this. And to be very honest, I have been receiving invitations quite often, time and again, from the institute and also from Principal Dr. Sudan. But somehow I'm so hard pressed. And incidentally, I was here last night and I have now to go back to Mumbai. So I could make the best of it, and I'm glad that the timing was appropriate. It's always a pleasure and also a gratifying experience being back to GMC Jammu and see it grow from one level to the other. I, for one, are among those who've seen this institute right from the day of inception, growing inch by inch, brick by brick, right from the day when Dr. N.S. Pathania, the founding principal, started the first ever batch of MBBS in barracks, because you didn't have a building of your own. And then, of course, the institute, having been founded in 1970s, evolved over the next few decades, which also incidentally happened to be decades when the medical education was evolving in this country. The 70s and 80s, when Dr. Kudiyar and others joined the institute, was also the time, in the context of today's conference dedicated to a super specialty, when the DM and MCH courses were being introduced in different institutes of the country. And as far as endocrinology, the subject chosen today, I believe Dr. Dash was the first ever endocrinologist in 1970s. And then, of course, the first generation, the first among all of them was Dr. Kudiyar for Jammu and Kashmir. So we've seen those times when these early batches of super specialists coming out with their DM and MCHs were struggling to set up super specialty departments because they had a lot of passion. But I think the best way to kill the passion is to take up a government job. So gradually they worked, they fatigued, got tired, but at the end of the day, they did their best. I remember Dr. Kudiyar being at pains, calling inspection teams time and again to get approvals. And having accomplished to an extent, may not be fully. So he came there for a medical checkup because he had to join a police job, he had been selected. So we residents were assigned to do the investigations, found he had growth hormone issues, he had acromegaly, 8.5 feet tall. He is now a star. Now that is what got him make a fortune, become one of the richest persons. Luckily, he is now back to India, started his own academy. So that was the first time I saw him. Out of my curiosity, I asked the attendants, who also happened to be a police functionary, I said, how do you recruit such individuals in the police force? Because there's a lot of running around and involved. So he said, कि साहब हमारे यहाँ पे हर साल एक tournament होता है all India, basketball. So this guy just goes and drops the ball. And every year we stand first. So you can see how non-seriously a disorder like acromegaly was being treated, which we know is accompanied with so much of morbidity and sometimes also mortality. Of course, then they prescribed him some Rogaine, etc., which I don't know he's taking. I asked him recently, he's even forgotten that because he's become such a big man now. So I think this is also, in a way, an initiative or an attempt to create awareness, because now the society is becoming so global that you have to have awareness levels intermixing between the medical professional and the patient and the public in large. And many of the institutes have also started a practice, because I keep traveling. Last week I was in Chennai, today we have an NRI medicos meet in Mumbai this evening, next week I'll be at Indore. many of the medical institutes like this have started their own in-house arrangement of having one CME coupled with a public awareness lecture on the same subject every week. Not depending on the pharma CMEs, because they have their own agenda, their own objective, and their own priorities also of disseminating knowledge. But in an institute like this, so I think we could, in course of time as we are evolving, could also take some of the good practices happening, because the knowledge explosion is so much, and the doubling time has increased. Doubling time, as we talk in medical parlance, is the time when a textbook needs to be brought out with the next edition. So when we were in MBBS, it was about 4 years or so. By the time we became postgraduates, 3 years. By the time we passed out, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 volumes of Harrison. Price was outdated, the price textbook. So with that kind of thing, I think what we learned in our formal, to which all the three of us, Suman, me and Dr. Kotwal belong, the district of Doda has been notorious for goiters. Even my mother had one. But even then, we've seen those times evolving from primitive stage when goiter was known as a curse of the god. And I remember when we were in an institute at the Ames for a while, which was at the behest of Dr. Kudyal, we had a candidate doing goiters, a thesis on goiter, and very frequently he would travel either to Kishtwar or to Arunachal Pradesh. Incidentally, his guide was Dr. Nikhil Tandon, who today happens to be the head of endocrinology at the Ames. So to that extent, I think you also deserve to be complimented, Suman, that when you organize an event like this, you are not only upgrading or updating the faculty, you are also creating a certain amount of awareness in the public about the various facets and various dimensions of disorders related to thyroid. And to that extent, I think even the other components of endocrinology have somehow missed out in the public domain. There's much little understanding about them, even still is. And to most of the people, endocrinology is all about diabetes. And to the endocrinologist also, he's happy being known as a diabetes man because that fetches good money. So, at the end of the day, the casualty is the other components. Like for example, in late 90s, we came across, all of you know, I won't name him because he's also a good friend now, and very recently I got him joined BJP, one of the star icons of WWF, the wrestler. So he came there for a medical checkup because he had to join a police job, he had been selected. So we residents were assigned to do the investigations, found he had growth hormone issues, he had acromegaly, 8.5 feet tall. He is now a star. Now that is what got him make a fortune, become one of the richest persons. Luckily, he is now back to India, started his own academy. So that was the first time I saw him. Out of my curiosity, I asked the attendants, who also happened to be a police functionary, I said, how do you recruit such individuals in the police force, because there's a lot of running around involved. So he started telling them. It took him about 4 or 5 minutes, repeated questions being asked by the female on the other side. So somehow he got impatient and irritated. He said, in any case, doctor is going to come, so why are you asking me so many questions? He said, no, we have to determine what kind of orthopedic surgeon do you require. Because we have orthopedic surgeons specializing in trauma, we have those specializing in arthritis, we have those specializing in nodular disease, etc., etc. So he was telling me, I got so fed up, I asked them, please don't ask me the next question, whether the knee is right one or the left. So, but that, having said in the lighter way, is going to be an issue which is already being confronted. And therefore, I think this is a good initiative, and involving some of the senior persons like Dr. Kudyal to be a part of this exercise. And before I conclude, because once a teacher is always a teacher, you always look for captive audience, and I have one today. Just to flag off 2 issues which I have been of concern. One, of the universal concern, more of second, more of the context of India. That one of universal concern which I have been talking about, and which others also, even in European and American medical schools, including Harvard, is that with the increasing amount of technology available with us, our investigative, our diagnostic capabilities becoming more specific, of course, also more sensitive, more precise, more time saving. Somewhere the focus has shifted away from clinical medicine. And I'm sure none else but Dr. Kudiyar would be able to bear that out, because he belongs to that generation. Maybe I belong to the last generation of that genre. And therefore, that is a concern being expressed even by some of the best physicians in the US. Because as Hippocrates says, a doctor is a doctor when he is of service to the society, even when he has no instruments, no investigation reports, no medicine at his disposal. But here, can we deliver that kind of a, because unless we have the investigations. And traditionally, at the bottom of the investigation report, it is always written, please correlate with clinical details. Now it's happening the other way around. The clinical details are written after seeing the report.